Hi, Pisces, and welcome to your March 2024 horoscope. There are some good news about March, and the good news is that we do not have as much Pluto influence as we did in the beginning of the year. However, March does signal the beginning of eclipse season. So this does mean that the universe still might have some tricks up its sleeve for you. But let's get into what you can expect day by day in the month of March. On March 3rd, we have Venus in your 12th house, squaring Uranus in your 3rd house. With Pluto in your 12th house and Mars and Venus there as well, you might have been quite focused on your internal world. Figuring out what's happening in there, working through some limiting beliefs that you might have, or some things that from your childhood you thought are the truth and you realize are no longer the truth for you. However, there are some unexpected things happening in your local community that is making it difficult for you to do that. It could be that your neighbors are asking for more attention from you, or your siblings, or even that, there's some construction in your immediate area that's making it loud and impossible for you to have these more reflective moments. On March 5th, we have Mars in your 12th house, sextiling and trining the notes in your 2nd and 8th house. All of the courageous things you've been doing, the courageous ways you've been showing up in reinventorizing your inner world, your inner beliefs, is resulting in a lot more self-confidence. It's resulting in you finally being able to stop being so dependent on others and really step into your own power, your own feeling of safety and security. On March 9th, we have Mars in your 12th house squaring Uranus in your 3rd house. It's a square between quite volatile planets. So both Mars and Uranus can be quite volatile. So on this day, be careful not to become too explosive or too overreactive. And especially with what's happening in your local community, what your neighbors, siblings are asking from you, you might start to explode or really have a strong reaction to what's happening. And for you, it might not be something that you really show outwards, but it might instead be a really strong reaction you have internally that you're not expressing. On March 10th, there's a new moon in Pisces in your 1st house. A new moon represents a new beginning. And because Saturn is conjunct the new moon, it does represent a serious new beginning. So you might be starting some type of a regiment around establishing your personality. I really see this as you book sessions with a stylist to be able to finally get a wardrobe that represents who you really are. Because it's a new moon in Pisces, I do suggest following your intuition. And I mean, as a Pisces, you're usually quite good at that. But if you ever have any feelings, any inklings that you should follow a certain direction, that you should book a certain stylist, or you should go into a specific store, do follow that, because that's going to lead you to just where you need to go. On March 11th, Venus enters your 1st house, or the sign of Pisces. We used the example earlier that you are booking sessions with a stylist. And now that Venus has entered your 1st house, you're also taking a look at how you can make those sessions beautiful and enjoyable. And if some of the ways that Venus might make these sessions beautiful and enjoyable is perhaps treating yourself during those sessions or after those sessions to a nice treat. Perhaps having some nice music playing in the background while you're doing the sessions. On March 20th, the Sun enters Aries, or your 2nd house. And even though we continue to have a lot of emphasis in your first house, the sun entering your second house does signal a slow shift into this new territory. And especially because the eclipses are going to take place in your second house. This is the house of the comfort and safety that we give for ourselves. And a huge way that we do that is by taking care of our finances, giving ourselves a financial feeling of safety and security. So if from the 20th onwards, you have moments where you feel lackluster, you have moments where you don't feel so excited about life, take a look at whether you can touch base with your finances again and really start providing yourself a sense of safety and security with them. On March 21st, we have Venus and Saturn conjunct in your first house. Venus and Saturn are both going to teach each other lessons. And for you, Pisces, we used the example earlier of you booking sessions with a stylist and trying to make them more beautiful by playing some nice music in the background, for example. Saturn is going to ask Venus, is the way we can make these sessions meaningful and beautiful really by playing music in the background? And Venus might respond and say, no, you're right, that's a bit shallow. Perhaps the way you respond to that is by having a journaling session after meeting with your stylist where you reflect on your relationship with yourself and your self-confidence. Likewise, Venus is going to ask Saturn some difficult questions. So Venus will ask Saturn, hey, are these sessions, this very regimented 1 hour, really the only way that we can bring some routine and some hard work into the way we express ourselves? And Saturn might say, okay, you're right. Yeah, we could loosen up a bit. So Saturn might say, okay, we can also go shopping with our friends once a week so that we are able to still work on our sense of style and the way we express ourselves, but we make it a little bit more fun and a little bit more flowy and open. On March 23rd, Mars enters Pisces, or your first house. And I really see this day as you feeling rejuvenated, remotivated, re-energized to put in the work and keep establishing your personality and who you are, because you gained all of these insights from the Venus and Saturn conjunction. On March 24th, Venus in your first house is sextiling Jupiter in your third house. Because you've been doing some meaningful and beautiful work in figuring out who you are, how you want to express yourself, this could be translating to some people in your local neighborhood noticing this change, and perhaps they feel more attracted to you. They want to give you more things, or they want to hang out with you a little bit more. On March 25th, there's a full moon in Libra in your 8th house. Because the north and the south node are about 10 degrees away from the moon and the sun, this does make this full moon a partial lunar eclipse. So anything that's happening on this eclipse, a couple of days before, a couple of days after, could be the theme that keeps repeating for you also into April as we go through the other eclipses. And for you, Pisces, these eclipses are going to ask you to reconsider the balance between relying on your relationships and relying on yourself. And trying to find that balance between not being too self-independent to the point where you ignore the fact that humans need relationships, but also not the other way around, that you depend on others so much that you become, codependent and you forget to think and live for yourself as well. We close off the month on March 28th with Venus in your first house, sextiling Uranus in your third house. We started off the month by saying that there's maybe some chaos in your local environment, maybe some construction going on outside. Maybe your siblings and neighbors are really asking a lot from you right now. But we're closing off the month with a feeling that we can handle it. We can handle this chaos and this uncertainty. And the reason we can handle it is because we have worked for the last month to establish who we are, to establish what we stand for, how we express ourselves, how we show up in the world. And that's giving us a sort of self-confidence to handle the difficult things that our local environment is throwing at us. So overall, Pisces, there is a lot of energy for you during this month, and a lot of energy on who you are, how you express yourself, how you come across to the rest of the world, and whether that's really in line with who you truly are at a deeper level. And we also see the eclipses asking you to become more self-reliant and to bring some balance back into how much do you rely on others versus how much you rely on yourself. I hope you enjoy March, Pisces. I think from April, once we start getting into Aries season, it might feel a bit easier. But anyways, I know you can do it. You got this. And I hope this forecast helped provide a little bit of insight and comfort as to what's to come. If you want to make sure you catch the April forecast, then make sure you subscribe. I hope to see you again soon.